I just realized that.
Yeah. Well, I just realized it too. Look, we've got like 100 pictures tonight. I've only got 3 pieces of copy to read. We're going to be going pretty fast. The only thing you have to do is the viewer appreciation, new Preston Petty Fender.
Fenders. Right.
You know the name of it.
It's a mutter.
They're so new.
Mini mutter.
They're still warm.
Mini mutters.
The mini mutter.
Mini
So
mutters.
we're going to have a mini mutter, and we're going to be doing that 3 weeks in a row. Okay?
Yeah.
So your camera's on.
You're not even on.
Yeah, I am.
I'm not according to this.
Yes, I am. 2 people are watching.
Well, how come I don't?
You better go find out where it is.
I'm right here.
I'm definitely on, and at 6 o'clock, I'm going live. Okay?
Yeah.
Actually, I am live.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abbate.
Everyone, you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. I am your host, Joe Abbate. Along with me, you guessed it, Susie. Susie, how you doing tonight over there?
I'm good.
Everything's good?
Everything's good.
And we've got, what's happening tonight as far as a sponsor, or we're giving away what? Tell the crowd.
We are giving away tonight
Yeah.
a Fender.
Who from?
Courtesy of Preston Petty. It's a mini mutter.
Yeah.
Fender.
Mini mutter.
Yeah.
This is hot.
Now they come in colors?
Yeah, right now, you know what? I've got them right here. I've got a little picture of it right here. Right now, here you go. White, yellow, and silver.
Oh, okay.
The red ones are being produced as we speak. Okay, so whoever you choose, yeah, they do get a choice. They may have to wait a week or so if they want red.
So there's 4 colors.
Yes, there are 4 colors, okay?
Good. Okay.
All right, so all you need to do is keep an eye on that until we get to that segment of the show a little bit later on. In the meantime, if you go to the show description and you'd like to make a donation of any type, any size to the show, go to PayPal, make a donation to the show, and I will send you a sticker, Vintage Motocross Q&A sticker, compliments of Vintage Motocross Q&A for any amount. We really do appreciate your support. Thank you, Racer X, the International Motocross Museum, Motion Pro. Sirius Studios, Vinco Full Circle Racing, Preston Petty Products, big sponsor of the show for many, many years now. And we've got a new product coming up for them tonight. AMSOIL, thank you, Russell Waters. And of course, Replica, motorcycleparts.com. The show would not take place without the help of these grassroots efforts from the people that are on this list right here. We want to thank them so very, very much. Again, Sirius Studios, Sirius off-track gear. Larry Winters, thank you so much for all you do for us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. And I want to thank a new working partner. And that would be my dear friend, Steve Wise in MotoFellowship.com. Steve Wise has a show at 5:30 Central Time every Tuesday night. Be sure to visit him at Moto Fellowship and Steve Wise. I restore tanks. Steve restores souls. It's that simple. We've been mentioning Preston Petty products here for a couple of minutes now. We've got this new Preston Petty batch of mini mutters coming up. White, yellow, and silver. We also have red. They are on the way. These just came out of the mold this week. Let me read to you what Paul Stannard has sent me, and we could all enjoy this together. I hope you and Susie are well. We have finally started production in Michigan, for our new mini mutter front fenders. The photo is of the first one coming out of the mold. That was a yellow one I had. The picture wasn't that great, so I asked Paul for another one. We will be producing today yellow, white, and silver fenders. In 2 weeks, we will have the red one also. If you like, we could use some help promoting these. How about if you do 3 weeks, we offer to one of your viewers a brand new mini mutter fender. They choose the color. If we can keep the winner in the continental United States, please. If they wish for red, no problem, but it may take a few weeks for them to get the red. Well, there you have it. Keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. And a little bit later on, Susie will announce the Viewer Appreciation Prize, or the person who will get the Viewer Appreciation Prize. Please keep sharing the show. Somebody's going to win a fender just like this, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. And yeah, lots of good stuff coming up. And next week, you know what we're going to do? Today, we're just going to give it away from the goodness of our hearts. Next week, you're going to have to study a little bit. We're going to do a trivia for the Mini Mutter next week. Right now, in the Next Time Try This segment, which is brought to you by Vinco. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to do this first, okay? Then we'll do the Vinco thing. Just how I see it. This is some things that I run across from time to time, and I get some thoughts and I get some ideas, and sometimes I like to share it with you. And in this particular instant, I would like you to send some feedback in your comments, in your notes. Let me know what you think of the following things that are going on. The Mika motorcycle auction was last weekend. You know, the big spenders come out, and so does the quality of the motorcycles. This 1975 Bultaco 360 136 was restored by, yes, Brad Lackey. And it was sold. How much? $26,800. 75 Bolt. Compliments of, well, it's not compliments. For $28,600, you can get a bike. $28,600. Now, here is the new owner with Brad. Brad autographed the bike. It's, I'm sure, a big thrill for whoever this gentleman is to have a Brad Lackey autographed and restored Bultaco. The funny thing is, I got a message today from someone you all know. I'm not going to drop names, but you all know who this person is. And after seeing the auction and seeing Garrett Wolsink out there for a couple of years selling bikes, there was a Paul Newman YZ360 out there that was put up from John Gregory, brought over 65,000, I think, a couple of years ago. Brad's been there selling some bikes. They've been doing really, really well. Probably about 25% over what a beautifully restored bike would go for, because Brad's name is attached to it. There is certainly some value in that. If you live here in California or you go to some of the events, you might run into Brad at one of those events. You might run into Jeff Stanton or David Bailey or any of the other, Ricky Johnson, and you might be able to get their autograph at one time. Unlikely you're going to be able to buy a bike from them. So people having the wherewithal, they're going to the auction, meeting Brad, meeting Garrett Wolsink, paying a couple of bucks extra for certain bikes. My question to you is, do you think it's worth the extra 20%? Being someone of that motocross legendary status has restored the bike and they owned it. Let's keep in mind, Brad never rode for the Bultaco factory. He just happens to be on a Bultaco kick right now the past couple of years. I was just saying, someone contacted me today. I'm not going to drop the name. They have a 1973, or I think it's a 73, Honda XR75. Their bike that they cut, and you know who the guy is. It's his original bike, going way back in 73. It's a name everybody knows. We had a little conversation today. He asked me, do I think he should bring the bike to Las Vegas next year? And the conversation went on. It's starting to catch on, kind of like Cars of the Stars thing. What do you think about that? Put it in the comments. I'll read them back a little bit later on in the show. We are now going to the Next Time Try This segment, brought to you by Vinco. We've got a good one coming up from our dear friend, Roy Vanderveer. Roy, what do we got on tires this week?
Here, welcome to this week's edition of Next Time Try This. I'm getting ready to put this wheel on my XR, and I thought I'd go over a couple of basic setup points that everybody should be paying attention to when they're working with their wheels and tires. First point I want to bring to your attention is this yellow dot. That is the lightest part of the tire. Almost all of the tire manufacturers will put some indicator on their sidewall as to where the lightest part of the tire is. The reason they do that is so you can position that with the heaviest part of the wheel. This Kenda tire has a white dot. It's very faint, but it's there. Got the arrow there to point it out. I didn't mount this tire, but whoever did was aware that the lightest part of the tire goes at the heaviest part of the wheel, which is always the rim lock if your wheels have rim locks. It's common for people to say that the dot goes at the valve stem. That's only true if there are no rim locks. Now this wheel has 2 rim locks. So there's not a lot you can do about that. So just pick one or the other and run with it. And then another point we should all be paying attention to is the date code on our tires. This date code indicates that this tire was built in the 34th week of 2015. So we're dealing with a 10-year-old tire here. Nobody has to be upset if the performance isn't that great or if the knobs start to chunk off. It's ready to be replaced anyway. After that much time, it's kind of exceeded its useful lifespan. Then we want to pay attention to the valve stem and the valve stem nut. And this is the way you're almost always going to see this done if you walk around the pits. So there's three ways to do it. There's the wrong way, there's the right way, which is that nut belongs tightened up against the valve stem cap. And then there's one more way, which is eliminating that nut altogether and then just running the valve stem cap. The only people that this is correct for is really if you're desert racing. The reason for that is we want the nut off the rim. That way if the tire slips on the rim, it'll point, and that gives us an indication that something's going wrong. If you're desert racing or doing long distance riding and you take the nut off and the tire slips on the rim, that'll allow the valve stem to point, and then get pulled down inside the rim. And the advantage there is you can finish your 500 or 1,000 mile ride because the tire's not flat. Because if this points enough with the valve stem nut on there, it will tear the inner tube. So that's only right for about 1% of all the people that would be watching this video. What everybody should be doing is tightening the valve stem cap against the valve stem nut, which leaves the valve stem free to move or to point, which is what gives you an indication if there's a problem or not. Could be low tire pressure, could be a rim lock problem. And then the last pet peeve, before I can put this wheel on my bike, is no grease on the axles. Light lubricant only. Axle grease is for covered wagons. Covered wagons don't have wheel bearings, therefore they need grease. If you put grease on this axle, it's a bear to get out, and it should go in just that easily. When you do your wheel spacers, just a little bit of light oil on the seal or the spacer, no grease. Grease attracts dirt, dirt and grease mix together. That makes valve grinding compound. That wears out your axle spacers. So just some light lubricant makes it easy to clean up, keeps everything looking fresh, makes it easy to pull your axles out. So if you have to do some service, unexpected service out on the trail or at the track, you've got one less thing to worry about, and you won't have grease all over your hands. With that, my friends, I'm out for this week. See you next week with some tips on how to get this drum brake to perform exactly the way I want it to. See you next time.
We're actually going to have Roy's video on the drum brake situation on tonight. We're going to be right back with more Vintage Motocross.
Hi, I'm Tommy Croft, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A with Joe Abbate. We'll be right back with my dear friend Joe.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shock so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
All right, we just got a little message from our buddy Gig Haggad. Gig, I understand you didn't get your poster from Terry Good yet. It could be my fault. I'll make sure I get a hold of Terry. I know you wanted an Oscar poster. We're going to make sure you get that, okay? I'll check on it as soon as I'm done with the show tonight. In the meantime, we're going to move on to the What's It Worth segment of the show. And every week I usually do something that has, you guess the price, and I give you a sticker and something like that. But I want to stay a little bit more in focus with what was going on at the Mika motorcycle auction this past weekend. So I've got a couple of bikes here. I think they've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, so to speak. And let's take a look at the first one. It's a 1971 Hodaka Super Rat. That's right. That's not a zip code. That is the price. $16,500. Let's go through the pictures on this $16,500 Super Rat. Yes, the gas tank was perfect. So was everything else. Every cable, every clamp, every screw, everything was replated to perfection, including the springs on the shocks, all the hardware. Everything looks as it did the way it came out of the factory, with the exception of the number plates, which are correct, but they had the 93A on it, which was kind of the code for the Hodaka Super at that time. Got some nice close-up pictures here. Yes, that is the correct shade of gray on this model. The pipe, the tires, the chrome, everything was exceptional on the motorcycle. $16,500? Somebody should have their head examined for $16,500. I could see maybe low teens if the bike were brand new, unrestored, in the crate from Pabatco, Oregon, on the MSO, maybe the last of the Hodakas that came out of the factory. $16,500 for a restoration? I don't know about that, my friend. Somebody had the money. Somebody paid for it. The math doesn't make sense to me, okay? Let's go on to the next one. One of 1,100. This is one of the most beautiful motorcycles ever made from Sweden. It is the Monarch 125. It has a Sachs engine. Here are some of the specs on the bike. 98cc 5-speed manual. You know, and it's got some beautiful paintwork. I'm sorry, this is the Hodaka. I'm looking at the Monarch now. Okay. So those are the specs on the Hodaka, but you know about all that. There were like 48,000 of them made, and we're going to move on to the Monarch. There was only 1,100 of these bikes brought into the USA. Absolutely eye-catching motorcycle with that beautiful yellow, and I don't know if you'd call that an aqua green or aqua blue, whatever it is, but between the chrome, the yellow, and that beautiful shade of blue, one of the most beautiful motorcycles ever made, and incredible. And if you know how to tune it and make it shift properly, dead reliable Sachs 125cc engine. They won a lot of races. So whether it was Preston Petty on a DKW, any of the Penton boys on a Penton with a Sachs engine in it, or a young rider named Marty Smith mopping up in Southern California before he got a Honda ride, which was followed by Scott Wallenberg. All I know is that Monarch had a lot of wins under their belt at that time, only having 1,100 units ever brought into the United States. How much did this bike sell for? $7,700. This bike is spectacular. The restoration would be close to $10,000, I would imagine. By the time you got done with the chrome, the paint, I mean, maybe not $10,000, but I mean, these days, you know, 80, 90 bucks an hour. They put 100 hours into it. Plus, you got to get the parts. You'd be high nines, low tens, maybe even more before you even got started. Then don't forget, you got to buy the bike too. $7,700 was a smoking deal. By the way, don't forget, on the Lackey bike at 28.6 or that Hodaka at 16 and change, there's still a premium on top of that. There's still tax due on top of that.
Who pays that?
You do right there in Vegas.
Oh, the customer.
The customer pays it. That's it. From from Full Circle Racing. Don't forget, visit Tom McAllister at fullcircleracing.com. Whether it's for Mako, CZ, Kawasaki, on-road, off-road, and dual-purpose bikes. Get a hold of Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. Tom, thank you for re-upping your sponsorship here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. We are going to bring you, a little commercial right now it's from Paul Parkinson Sr., but it is for replicamotorcycleparts.com. No, it's for Full Circle Racing. Sorry, Full Circle Racing. Here we go.
wish Tom well too.
Yeah, I hope Tom is doing much better. He was laid up there with a foot problem for a while.
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle Racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle Racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
Susie, how are we coming along there with any comments on the Brad Lackey bike at 28.6 for Taco?
Yeah, some people said, you got it.
If you got it, good.
Yeah.
But then, does anybody feel that is something that's going to start to trend?
No, I didn't see anything like that, but I think that someone said I lost the feed. I don't know what happens when I go out and come back in.
Yeah.
I lose it. But someone said you got to be like drinking a lot of alcohol. Would be
All right. I brought the comments up over here. I don't really see it either. I see Gay Cadad's there, Greg Wynn, and Tyler McGregor, and so many other people are watching. Eric Weiss, thanks for tuning in. If I see something a little bit later on, or Susie sees something, we will bring it up. We'll bring it up on the show. Okay? That's all right. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, I want to thank Mark Ferriester, Sunrise Vapor Blasting, for doing a great job for us all over here at Vintage Motocross Q&A and Joe Abbate Cycle Therapy. And I've sent people to him for car parts, truck parts, boats. If it floats, flies, or rolls, you want to get a hold of Mark Ferriester at Sunrise Vapor Blasting. And don't forget, guys, you have to mail it to somebody to have it vapor blasted. You might as well mail it to him. 1 day turnaround time, reasonable prices. Thank you, Mark Ferriester. In the Here's the Problem segment tonight, we've got 3 really good questions by people who participate quite often on the show. In fact, look at this. They sent them one after the other, which I thought was kind of interesting. So let's go with the first one. And believe it or not, I can't see. Is it Webley? Brian Webley.
Or Tyler McGregor.
No.
Brian Webley?
No, just a minute. Because I want to make sure I see the guy's name on the air here.
What do you say?
It's Mark Warren. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Mark Warren. Exit full screen. Mark Warren, I'm going to read your question here right now. You may have covered this topic before. The details are different finishes on the vintage rims, polished, anodized, etc. Specifically, silver did rims in the 70s. Okay. Let me get right back up here. Let me get back up here to your question and to the picture that I have. Here it is. Okay. You got to say they did rims. They're off a Honda. They look just like this. You're going to cut the spokes out, or maybe you could salvage the spokes, but you want to get the rim back into its original finish. This right here is the front rim that matched this rim. Okay. Here it is. What you want to do, Mark, is you want to strip the rim of the old anodizing and polish it. Anodizing, and next week, I already have it written down and I already started to do the research on it. Next week, we're going to have a big part of the show dedicated to anodizing, what that coating is really like. There are 3 steps to it. There is hard anodizing. There is type 2 anodizing. Some of it, when it's put on with only 1 coat, you can see more of what is underneath, which is why I recommend polishing. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but just, you see this rim? This is a brand new XL rim, whether it's from Full Circle Racing or any other distributor. You see how shiny the gold looks, as opposed to, well, you've seen them before. You've seen Husqvarna rims or rims on the 82, 83 Hondas. The Husqvarna's really had. It was like a dull finish. It depends on the aluminum, how it's extruded. It depends on whether or not it was polished. If you want a real nice, smooth finish like on a Honda rim like this, then you got to strip that old anodizing off, vapor blast it off, however you do it, polish it, and then re-anodize it. Here's a couple of other tips for you. There's no such thing as silver anodizing. It's clear. One time I had someone ask me about how to get a frosted look finish on an early Elsinore rim. I know exactly what he meant. You may know what I'm talking about too. It's not frosted. It happened to be the aluminum, the way it's extruded. Maybe it wasn't polished that much. It looks like it has a mild, I wouldn't even call it rough, textured finish. By the time they anodize it, a batch of those bikes came through and they did kind of look like a frosted silver. Very, very difficult to ever do that again. The original aluminum, how it was extruded, depending on how it was polished, the shade of the aluminum, whatever it is, it's going to make a difference in the color of your wheel, no matter what color you anodize it. And when it comes to gold, I have seen and I have been through, well, I don't want to call it a nightmare, but I went through a process with an anodizer one time where my front rims came out a completely different color than the swing arm on a KX that I restored. It was for myself. It didn't really matter. But it mattered to me because that was kind of the process I followed or experiment I did on my own stuff before I could do it on somebody else's bike. So keeping that in mind, silver, polish, it's clear it's not silver. If they dip it continuously, you're going to get a different type of anodizing on there. It's going to be a little bit thicker. But what you have underneath is going to show through on that anodizing. I hope that helps, Mark Warren. Next question comes from, and it was in the same batch. Here it is. Alan Huey. How often should a brake, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. How often should a brake system be inspected, shoes, drums, and linkages? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up a video, and we're going to watch it after I answer the last question. Okay, so I'm going to put it in, so to speak, staging right now. Then I'm going to go back to Alan Huey's question in just a minute. We're going to play a video that Roy made, a really, really good one, and you'll see exactly what you should be doing when you service your brakes. Now, I'll answer your question after I answer this other question right here, which is also from Alan Huey. Guy's very busy this week. Have any of the MX factories ever given thought to producing retro two-stroke dirt bikes like cars have been done lately? They have the plans already. No, I don't think they have, and the market would be very, very limited. Yeah, maybe a guy like you might go out, a guy like me or you or somebody else. I don't think I would do it. And, to retool everything, it's going to be almost as much as a brand new bike. So whatever, let's say Kawasaki's coming out with a new two-stroke again, another 250 for 2025 or 2026, how much do you think that bike's going to be? 8, 9, 10, 12,000? Look at the price of 454 strokes. 15, 18,000, some of them. It's insane. So no, I don't think they will ever do that, and I don't think it should be done. You can go get yourself an authentic bike for less money. Now, they've done it on street bikes, and here, I'll show you. Here's a 1973 Kawasaki Z1 900, 1973. 2023, they came out with a commemorative edition Z1. And it looks a lot like the original from 73. Let's face it, the color scheme is the same. They've kind of captured it, with the pipe, and they did as much as they can. But of course, there's a lot of modern technology in this bike, probably from the aluminum wheels to the water cooling to the upside down forks to the modern suspension. But there's a lot more people buying Z1Rs and Z1s than there would be in a KX. I want to share something else with you. A lot of people asked, or not a lot of people, I think it was Mike Conley at one time, asked, why did Kawasaki not make an open bike between 76 and 81? I'll tell you why. Because they were making this bike hand over fist, and they had to catch up with Honda. Honda came out with that amazing 750 CB in 1969, I think it was. And boy, Everybody wanted that bike. A lot of people switched from their British bikes, got on Japanese bikes. There was that four-cylinder reliability, disc brake up front. Kawasaki got on that bandwagon, and they sold so many of those bikes that they had no reason to go build a 450 or a 400 motocross bike at that time in a much narrower market. They were raking it in on the Z1. Okay. Now, I did promise you a video from Roy from Alan's question about how often should you check your brake shoes and your linkage. I mean, it depends on the conditions. You race at a dusty track all weekend, or you're on a cross-country race and it's dusty for 50 miles. At the end of the day, at the end of the weekend, before your next event, you probably want to take that bike apart, re-grease the axles, wash everything, and check your brake drums and shoes. A lot of dust gets in there. But speaking about brake shoes and service and maintenance, and a great tip, we got Roy. He's back with another video. Roy
Vanderveer here, back again for another episode of Next Time Try This. As I'm getting ready to mount up the wheel on my XR, I have ridden this bike before, and there were some things about the rear brake that really aggravated me. I think a lot of you are going to be familiar with this. The rear wheel chattered every time I touched the brake, and it would just instantly lock up. So it was a light switch, especially with, you don't want that on any bike, but you really don't want that on large displacement bikes because it makes it really easy to kill the engine going into turns. And this one will not bump start unless you pull the compression release. So we really want a controllable, strong rear brake on this bike. And I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to start with, we have to understand a couple parts of the brake shoe. And I want to point out a common problem, and that is when the crown of the shoe is the first part to touch the drum. If you see only wear in this part of the shoe, that is never, ever going to be a good performing brake. It's critical that the leading edge of the leading shoe is the first part to touch the drum. So with that, we'll move on to our brake plate. Wheel spins this way. We need to identify which is the leading edge of the leading shoe. So with the wheel going this way, the brake cam here, this is the leading shoe. The leading shoe does about 80% of all the braking. This is the trailing shoe. It does almost nothing other than support the other side of the brake plate. So what we have in our favor, and I hope this is close enough, you can see that this part of the shoe right here is what's touching the drum first. Out here, not so much, not so much, not so much over here. So with this leading edge of the leading shoe being the first part to hit the drum, that supports self-actuation of the shoe. So as the wheel's turning, part of the shoe touches the drum, it actually pulls the shoe into the drum. And that's called self-actuation. But if you have too much of it, that's when you get into wheel chatter or the wheel locking up when you don't want it to. You know, just a light touch of the brake pedal and the thing would just lock. So to adjust that out, the way we go, and I want to point out something else. Forgive me. This leading shoe is perfectly square. And when you have a square leading edge, that even further promotes self-actuation. These shoes had a slight taper, okay, but we still want it to be a little more gentle. We want to have the ability to control this brake. So take a file and you chamfer the leading edge of the leading shoe. And to go even one step further, you can see I've done it at a slight angle. Now, if that's not enough, then just keep increasing the angle until you get the leading edge of the leading shoe to stop taking such a strong bite on the drum. And that will smooth out your self-actuation problem, cut out the wheel chatter, and make it so you can modulate your brake. And with that, I'm ready to put my wheel on my bike. See ya.
Roy Vanderveer. Where are you going to get information like that? Only on Vintage Motocross Q&A with Joe Abbate. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we will have the announcement on our viewer appreciation prize winner. It's a Preston Petty Fender. It's coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Hey, I'm Brad Lackey, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Be right back.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
The International Motocross Museum is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. Be sure to get over to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. Shirts, hats, clocks, all types of swag over there. I was on the phone with Terry Good today. We do have an announcement coming up about a conversation that is happening with one of the big four manufacturers. Bikes and odds and ends are being put into the building as we speak. We're getting closer, guys. It's going to happen. Susie has been giving me the look. Not that look. Get your mind out of the gutter. She's been giving me the look that she has a viewer appreciation prize winner. And it is for, let me see if I can do this while we're up there too. Ah, there it is. The new Mini Mutter, compliments of Preston Petty Products. These things are still warm out of the mold. They just started making them in the past week. They are made in Michigan now, in the good old US of A. So Susie, why don't you tell me who this week's viewer appreciation winner is?
This week's viewer appreciation
Yep.
winner, the lucky person is Kurt Evans.
Kurt Evans?
Yeah.
Kurt Evans.
Kurt Evans.
And what color can he get?
He can get yellow, silver, white, and red.
But he can't get red right away, right?
Red is coming.
Okay.
A couple weeks.
All right. Great job, Susie.
Thank
As
you.
always, I will be renewing your contract for 2025.
How do you know I'll be renewing your contract?
Well, I'm just hoping it's an amicable agreement. Kurt Evans, send me your mailing address. I will get it to Paul Stannard, you, and of course the color of the fender you want, and we will make sure that you get your Mini Mutter from Preston Petty Products. All right, right now, ready to go, white, yellow, silver. You want a red one, you're going to have to wait a week or so. Okay, thank you, Paul Stannard, Preston Petty Products, for being a longtime sponsor of Vintage Motocross Q&A. There are the fenders again, Mini Mutters. A lot of people are asking about these for quite some time now. Let's get on with the show. The Moto Showcase is brought to you by him, Preston Petty, Preston Petty Products, Preston Petty Products, and we're not going to bring him into the show. Okay. Tonight's bike is from Harry Mason from Down Under, all the way in Australia. Harry Mason and Rhonda, wonderful friends of Susie and I. They made it possible for us to visit the beautiful continent of Australia. But we're going to go through the pictures here. And let me tell you something. They really use their bikes there in Australia, and parts are extremely difficult to find, even for some of the most common bikes here in America. So when you go through the picture on this bike, you'll see that Harry really rides it. It's a great bike. I've seen it in person, but enough about what I've seen. Harry Mason, hi, Joe. RM370 was purchased from John Dawson in Idaho. The previous owner built the bike to race. He fell into hard times and had to sell it. Fortunately for me, I was able to purchase the bike. Rob Alcock of North Coast Shipping in Oz made the arrangements and had it shipped to Brisbane, Australia. I drive 5.5 hours to Brisbane and picked it up and drove home again in the same day. The motor was rebuilt and it runs very, very strong. The bike supports a PFR pipe and silencer, which gives it a really crisp power in the low end and the mid-range, and it tops out with a little burble on the top, but it really has a nice sound to it. The brakes work great for an older bike. The frame has been powder coated. It has a new seat cover. The tank has been repainted at a one stage. However, the paint is starting to wear off a bit from the knee hugging on the tank. The swing arm has been taken off and it's got a 78 swing arm on it. It appears to have stock rims. It has the factory translucent number plates. Those are pretty cool. Not sure where you got those down in Australia, Harry, but certainly a nice touch to the bike. Although the bike has been built in 1977, the suspension works great for its age. The bike is very well presented for racing. I'm looking forward to riding it again this fall. Thank you for all you do at Vintage Motocross Q&A. We really enjoy the show down here in Oz. Thanks. Harry Mason, BGK Motorcycle Restorations, Inverell, Australia. Thank you, Harry. It's a great looking bike. And you buy stuff from me from time to time, including hardware and some odds and ends. I'm sure you're going to wind up purchasing something from me in the very near future. I think I have some hardware on the side for you. For you sending in this bike for the show and the fact that I'm already going to be mailing something to you in Australia, I'll get you some Vintage Motocross Q&A stickers or something nice. Compliments of Preston Petty Products, Vinco, or someone here on the show. Harry Mason, thanks so much for giving us that bike here, okay? I want to thank our sponsor once again, Sirius Studios. Great racewear, but for your off-track stuff, you know? So if you're tired of skulls, crossbones, neons, and people on your shirt that look like this, then, you get yourself something from Sirius Studios like this, and you go out looking like a human being. I also want to thank our other supporters and sponsors of the show, RacerX, FastGuyStuff.com, Vend, of course, Ben's Vintage Mini Bike Podcast.
And I'm making stickers for him, too.
And Susie's making stickers for Ben's Vintage Mini Bike Podcast. He'll have those for sale. And we're also going to have some T-shirts made, I think, for me and George Ackerman.
Right.
You know what I would really love to do right now? Oh, man, I'm out of commercials.
We'll have dinner.
No, I wanted to have dinner. I wanted to take a little break before I go into the Did You Know segment with Jeff Kokoski. But I really don't have any commercials right now. So let's move on to that segment. Jeff Kokoski is back. I'm back. Everything's going well. Did you know? Now, if you watched the show a couple of weeks ago, last week I had the interview with Steve Wise, but the week before that, Jeff brought us up to speed on what was going on in the Super Bowl of motocross, Supercross, and all the things that were happening during that time, 1971, 1972, the Goodman situation, and so much more. Goodwin situation, and so much more. So this is part 2 of that. Did you know? Last week, it was actually 2 weeks ago, we talked about stadium motocross actually started in Europe and not in the U.S., but eventually took on the Americans by storm. During March of 71 and March of 72, a bike week at Daytona, pro motocross races was held in the Daytona International Speedway. But by the summer of 72, things were about to change in a big way. By 72, Mike Goodwin was rolling in as flamboyant rock concert promoter who had previously worked with the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, and The Doors. Goodwin was a tall, brash, and outspoken with a larger-than-life personality and a penchant for wearing fur coats. I see. I think I have a picture. Here he is right here. A little bit of a far-off picture, but he was a rather very, very unusual guy. After all, if you're going to make it in the world of rock and roll entertainment, you need to stand out and not be afraid of taking risks. He was also a fan of motocross and had heard about stadium races that had happened in Daytona that year and the previous year as well. He knew how to draw a crowd, and since he knew a little about motocross, he was probably one of the only person that recognized the future entertainment and monetary value regarding these races. Edson Dye was also instrumental in introducing the American masses to motocross by bringing the European MX stars to the States a few years earlier, had hired flat track racer Everett Brashear to develop a motocross school for Dye's SoCal Husqvarna business. Brashear brought Sweden's MX champion Rolf Tiblin to Carlsbad to conduct some motocross schools. Mike Goodwin's knew Brashear had arranged the audience with Tiblin. Goodwin asked the champ if he could build him a motocross track in the LA Coliseum. And you see it right here. That happens to be Brad Lackey doing some practicing there on the track. Tiblin was intrigued with this, told Goodwin, we can make it look really good. It won't be a motocross track, but it'll work. That's all Goodwin needed to hear, and he was ready to run with the idea. Word spread quickly, and that the field was going to be used, that where the LA Rams used to play football, it would soon be a dirt bike track, and they would create a motocross environment right there. Since nothing like this had ever been tried before, it was greeted with skepticism. Even though the event was scheduled for July 8th, 1972, right in the middle of the World Grand Prix season, Goodwin was able to get commitments from major and some minor European stars of the day. Most noticeable was Torleif Hansen, and teammate Arne Kring from Husqvarna, as well as Torsten Holman, and soon-to-be 250 world champion Håkan Andersson, who would be there to represent Yamaha, who was also a major event sponsor. In addition, there were some popular Americans there as well, including Gary and Dwayne Jones, Brad Lackey, Jimmy Weinert, Rex Staten, Gary Chaplin, John DeSoto was also there. In order to increase the dramatic flair for the event, Goodwin hired Larry Huffman. Here's a good picture of Larry here, who we unfortunately recently lost. Anyway, Larry, Supermouth, known as by the LA Times, and he was recognized throughout the SoCal Speedway scene. Huffman was more like a boxing announcer than a race anchor, and was known for wearing tuxedos and suits and matching pocket squares, and could easily work the crowd into a frenzy with his iconic voice. Right here in that picture, we see a very young Marty Tripes. Anyway, since the LA Coliseum had been the site of the very first NFL Super Bowl just 5 years earlier, Goodwin attempted to add legitimacy to the race and create a parallel to pro football, and he called it the Super Bowl of motocross. Purists of motocross at the time were reluctant to embrace the idea of a twisty man-made track inside of a football stadium, so they sarcastically referred to it as the Salad Bowl of motocross. Okay. But it was Paul Boudreau, you may know him from Motocross Action at the time, that coined the term Supercross. He thought Super Bowl of motocross was too wordy, so he shortened it. Mike Goodwin insisted that journalists call it by the proper name, but thankfully it was too late. The name Supercross was already coined. On a hazy 70-degree night, July 1972, 35,000 fans packed into the Coliseum to witness the first race of its kind. Typical for the motocross era of that time, the main event was a 500cc support race that would consist of 3 motos each using the Olympic scoring system. I'm going to go back through some of these pictures here too. The lowest score was the win. And aside, the Triple Crown events that we see a few times each year in the Supercross schedule, the first up for the 2025 being this last weekend in Glendale, is sort of a throwback into those days. But with all the European American stars that were there that evening, it was a relatively unknown teenager from Santee, California, San Diego, named Marty Tripes that would steal the show. Tripes had just turned 16 a few weeks before and had recently signed with Team Yamaha. By the third and final moto, Sweden's Torleif Hansen had scored the first and third into the prior 2 motos, which gave him 4 points and the low score. However, Tripes shocked everyone by tying Hansen in points by virtue of a pair of second-place finishes. Because Kring and Anderson were a little further back in the points, it was evident that whichever rider, Hansen or Tripes, that finished higher than the other in the final moto was going to win the overall. When the gate dropped, Anderson got out in front on his Yamaha and was gone. Hansen was content in second place. Kring was in third. Tripes, unfortunately, got a bad start. He finished 10th. However, by the halfway point, Tripes was picked off by a rider 2 every lap past Kring for third. Incredible how Marty Tripes rode that night. With 5 minutes left in the moto, he spurred by the home crowd, and they were just cheering him on at an incredible pace. He became an instant celebrity. The following year in 73, Marty showed him again at the Super Bowl of Motocross that it was no fluke. He won the second time. By 74, the AMA got involved in shanking the series, calling it the Yamaha Super Series, which included Daytona, 2 nights at the Houston Astrodome, and a final at the LA Coliseum, with Yamaha-mounted Dutchman Pierre Karsmakers claiming the first AMA Supercross title. AMA Hall of Fame journalist Ed Youngblood probably summed up Supercross the best. He said, in a sense, Supercross is motocross American style. What American imported to the late 1960s had been repackaged, rebranded, and exported to the world in the 1970s as a new form and a new sport. And there you have it from Jeff Kokoski. Great breakdown. Jeff talks a lot about Marty Tripes in there, how the Europeans came over, how Mike Goodwin, which is an incredible story in itself. And there's something coming up on that Mike Goodwin story too. I think someone has come up with another documentary type series. And yeah, there it is from Jeff Kokoski. Did you know? 72, 73, 74, and that's what's happening. Did you know? You know, we got a race coming up here in NorCal. Once again, it happens April 25th, 26th, and 27th. It's the CZ race. I'll make this a little bigger so I can see it, because the older I get, the smaller the print gets. MMX Racing, okay? That happens, the 25th, 26th, and 27th. It is a 2-day event. It's got the Robin Hanna Cup in there. They've got kids classes and so much more. And I think NorCal Vintage is giving away a cash prize for the 100cc event, 300 for first, 200 for second, and 100 for third. Okay, so there's some really, really cool stuff going on April 25th through the 27th at MMX in Northern California. There's another event coming up there too, and I'm going to get to that right now. It's another racing event. I think Al Roof's got something coming up too in the very, very near future. Something in North Carolina. Is it this one? Oh, no, this is the Armour event. Yeah, White Lightning. It happens Friday, March 7th and Saturday, March 8th. Okay, you get over to the Armour website and you can find out more about this Armour event. Did I run? No, I didn't. And I need to.
What?
What do you call it?
What?
ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com.
Oh.
I need a break so desperately, so I am going to run the commercial for ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Paul Parkinson, I'll talk a little bit about a product he's got out here, and we will continue on. And we're about ready to wrap up the show here at Vintage Motocross Q&A, right after I get done with the full circle, not the full circle racing video, but the Replica Motorcycle Parts video, Paul Parkinson Sr.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. It carries the #1 plate in the US. So let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our airbox. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then on this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike and stuff are all done by us. And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175s, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else. Reliability.
There you have it. ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Be sure to visit them online. They've got hundreds of products at ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. You know, one of them that I really love right here. Check this out. See, this is a stock toe pad for a 1974, 73, 74 Honda CR125, okay? Very difficult to get your race boot on there or work shoe. It's tucked under the clutch cover. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. Now, you see the size of that one? Look at the size of this one. All right. The same brake lever. It's for a 1973-74 Honda CR250, but the brake pad, or I'm sorry, the toe pad is much, much bigger. Okay. So for you guys with bigger boots, this would be an answer to a problem that's been going on for like 50 years when it comes to riding an Elsinore. Okay. Because you know what they say, a guy with a big boot needs a big toe pad like this. That's why you get one of those from replicamotorcycleparts.com. Last segment of the show tonight, and then I'm going to let you go. This week in motocross history brought to you by Racer X. It was February 1st, the most pivotal Florida Winter AMA Series in history began February 1st, 1976 at the North Florida Raceway in Jacksonville, Florida. These were the days before Supercross dominated the first half of the calendar. In fact, in 1976, the AMA Supercross Series would not begin until March 6th at Daytona, and it only lasted 6 rounds. The Florida Winter AMA, run by Bill West, were the place for the preseason training, and many of the stars were there from the factory teams in 76, such as Tony DeStefano, Danny Laporte, Steve Stackable, Jimmy Ellis, Kent Howerton, and Buck Murphy, just to name a few, including Mike Runyard. Now, you had Mako's Galen Mosier, John Savitsky, Rocket Rex Staten on a Harley, Gary Jones on the Ice-Low, but it was the appearance of a rookie on a Yamaha, in fact, a pair of rookies on Yamahas, that really, really set things on fire. And those rookies were, of course, Bob Hanna, and that's not Bob Hanna. That's Bob Hanna and Rick Burgett. Okay, so it was Hanna and Burgett that were really setting the whole thing ablaze, and it was truly a game changer when these guys got on there. Hanna had raced just one AMA Pro National before 76, finishing 6th in the last 125 National in 75 in San Antonio. He was barely known outside of the California desert. He was fast, confident, and determined enough to catch Yamaha's eye. They signed him as a prospect to chase down the 2-time national champion, Marty Smith. First, they dispatched Hanna, then Oregon's Rick Burgett to Florida with some seasoning aboard the OW26-400. It was at that event in Jacksonville at the opener for Hanna and Burgett. They went 1 and 2 in the open class, shocking pretty much everyone but themselves. It began a series of wins for Hanna that would include his stunning upset over the heavily favored Marty Smith at Hangtown in April. And it did culminate in the first of his 6 AMA titles, and, of course, his induction into the AMA Hall of Fame. Hanna, what a career. Also, a lot of these other guys had incredible careers, too. They often talk about Hanna having 6 national titles. They don't call Jeff Stanton Mr. 6-time for nothing. Brock Glover has 6 as well. But, of course, Hanna was very, very dominant in what I would consider a short period of time. That 78-79 period that he was in, just an absolutely shocking time. Yes, the 76 season as well, but we all know about Bob's career, and you can hear more about it. He's done something on the Whiskey Throttle. There's another video right now somewhere on Facebook where he was talking about a couple of different things too, about his career. So there you have it. You want to be a sponsor of Vintage Motocross Q&A, get a hold of me. I will send you a sponsorship proposal package. And thank you to all my sponsors, and thank you, the people who watch the show, and to Roy Vanderveer, who's made some incredible videos for us. We've got a lot more really, really cool stuff coming up for 2025, including Jerry Maddox on the road, videos from Robert Oscar Pomeroy, more stuff from Roy, and just a lot of great stuff happening. Congratulations to Kurt Evans, our winner tonight of that Preston Petty Mini Mutter Fender. You want me to get him?
Oh, James.
Come on, boy. That wraps it up for this week's edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. Think about donating. And if you know anybody that may want to be a sponsor of our show, please tell them about it. We reach 20,000, 30,000 people a week. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. It's just a great way to spend some advertising dollars. We'll see you next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A.